Hi guys, Rekus here with another video, and today we want to have a look at the tree of origin of yet again another Transcendence hero, this time Lord of Fear Aspen. We already had a look at Starring Jorah in one of the last videos. Check that out. I made a playlist on the channel. I will put all of those reviews of the tree of origins in there. I've also added a pinned comment to the last video with some new information I found out. We will later on, much later on of course, when I fully unlock a tree of origin and we maybe even get a reset feature, have an even deeper look at the heroes, test them in game and everything. For now we can only basically look at the skills, see what could be good, what likely won't be good, and later on we can also test that in game. So for now, let's have a look here at Aspen. I already opened the tree of origin. If you guys don't know, you can actually open those heroes in the hero gallery, click on the hero you want to see, and you can not only see the stellar skills, you can also see the tree of origin and the core of origin and all the effects. So if you want to have a look at this yourself, feel free to do so. It's all in game. So for the first skill, the active skill was only changed a little bit actually. I was quite surprised how little it was changed. Basically the only thing that changed is the attack value. The attack damage deals 1200% of attack damage. We find that here, here, here and here, and this was 1000 before, and that's everything they changed. So not really that impressive. Yeah, compared to Starring Jorah, that feels not that much. Then again, this active actually does a lot of damage. The 1000 and now in this case the 1200% of attack damage is applied 2 times here, another 2 times here, and if we kill with this attack, then we get it another 2 times. So in the best case scenario, we will deal 6 times this damage, and even after this attack another time, so 7 times this damage, which is obscene, this giant amount of burst, and a lot of the times a bit underestimated, because this attack multiplier is actually one of the highest actives in the game, and it's quite insane. So not only CC but also burst hero here. Then another thing I noticed, some of those descriptions, especially for Aspen, are not that specific, not that precise. They require a bit of testing to really find out what is behind them, how they work and everything. I will talk to about those if we reach them, especially this one. This one can be quite insane. It says inflicts fear abyssal gaze to all targets. Usually this active only inflicts fear abyssal gaze to a single enemy that is in the same position that Aspen is. So the question this is, if it now inflicts fear abyssal gaze to all targets, does that mean all enemies? So like Aspen does an active and then he has a chance to CC the entire enemy team. That would be great. Or is it like all targets, which is only the hero in the opposite position, and maybe if he kills that hero, all the other heroes that he hits? We have to test that. In general, we have to say though, this node has a lot of potential to make Aspen really great. If it's really like he does an active and CCs the entire enemy team, this will be insane. And then he will be quite strong in PvP and PvE, and I'm really eager to test that. Then we have also for the active this triggering condition of dealing extra damage, targets HP less than 60%. What they mean with that is this second part: after the attack, if the target's HP is lower than 40%, deals 1200% of attack damage 2 times and restores self HP equal to 120% of the damage dealt. So having this at 60% instead of 40% makes it much more easy to trigger the secondary damage, and therefore will on average enable Aspen to do more damage in PvP and PvE. So getting this node, that's just an easy super high damage buff. So really I would prioritize this one because it's very great. And then we have increased crit by 10%, which is nice, of course, a little stat buff, but nothing too impressive here. Then again, Aspen has a lot of sources of crit damage, so getting a bit of extra crit will always be quite nice. So for our first passive, we have the Deadly Grasp. Deadly Grasp is the passive for the basic attack, so usually the third passive, I believe. Usually it did 800% of attack damage, now it's 960, so pretty good buff there. And what is more important is we reduce the control immunity now by 18% instead of the former 15%. This is huge, getting more CC on the hero, reducing their control immunity. This will help your Aspen, and in combination with Starving Jara will give you a better CC. So if you run like a big Aspen, you can make him attack before the Starving Jara and then CC, and you will have a super high chance to CC the enemies, which is always of course great. The next thing is they buff the chance to inflict fear from 70% to 75%, meaning basically if you run a Receptor on him, with the control precision from the Receptor alone, you will have a 100% chance to inflict fear Besser Gaze, which can of course be reduced a bit by the enemy having control immunity or other stats that help here. But you will only need in a slight amount of control precision. The takeaway you should take from this is that it will not be worth it to roll control precision on your Aspen if you run Receptor. Better go for CI offset and maybe some damage stat like holy damage crit chance will be good. And if you have 80 or higher, of course, Giant Killer Defier, always great. Defier is actually also pretty cool. For Aspen will make it easier for you to get to the 60% threshold for the active that we discussed here, and make it able for him to do high damage. And then we have the increase of the crit rate. Formerly it was 20%, now 24%. Again, we have the similar scheme we watched at Starving Jara, we saw there, of about 20 to 25% increases. And again, we have a 20% increase here, from 20 to 24%. So it's quite good, but probably not that noticeable. Let's go for the small nodes now. Let's look at them. We have an additional reduce of the target's damage reduction by 5% for 2 rounds, which is a nice stat and will help you do more damage. It won't enable any specific strategies, but on average you will do more damage, and that's of course great. The next node, increase the duration of crit to 4 rounds. What they mean, of course, is the crit rate buff that usually lasts 3 rounds. Now it will last 4 rounds. We saw similar buffs within the video for Starving Jara. It's of course quite good. Getting a longer crit rate buff will make it easier for you if you don't run an energy feed to stack multiple crit rate buffs of those. And this will of course as well help you do more damage and maybe make it possible for Aspen to reach 100% crit chance and get the full use of the crit damage buff we will see later. And the last one, precision buff by 40%. Alright, it's quite good, nothing too exciting. The next passive we are going to look at is Death Spread. Death Spread triggers whenever an enemy dies, and we increase our crit damage, that was what I was talking about before, by 35%. Formerly it was 30%, so again a small buff. This time even under 20%, but it's still quite alright. Crit damage by 35% for each enemy that dies is quite good. And we have a 100% chance to inflict Fear Abyssal Gaze on all enemies. Was also 100% before, so no real change there. The only change to this passive is the slight increase in crit damage, so not that exciting of a change to that passive. We can look at the smaller nodes, HP and attack, a small stat buff. It's right, we take it. And then we have, when it is triggered, additionally increases self-crit by 10% for 2 rounds. So every time an enemy dies, also a little crit buff for us, which will mean we will very fast reach 100% crit rate. Maybe have a look at your imprints, check if it's worth to run crit chance even with all those buffs, because you will likely have very fast access to a high crit rate. So maybe run holy damage instead. Requires a little testing, of course. We will have to see. And then when it is triggered, to use this crit by 10% for enemies without fear for 2 rounds. So there's of course the question, when does this effect trigger? Because if he kills an enemy, he of course applies fear to all enemies unless they have some kind of control immunity and thereby don't get it. Are this only the heroes that after applying the fear effect don't have fear, so the few ones that had enough control immunity to escape it, then it won't be that good? Or does it trigger before he actually applies the fear effect? In that case, it would be nearly all enemies, unless he applied fear before already. So that remains to be tested. In general, it won't be that impactful though. It's nice. Don't get me wrong, it's a nice effect. And we will take it, but it won't be that much of a game changer. So having a look at the last passive now, Source of Fear. That one was changed more than the others. We have a lot of numerical values actually in here. It triggers whenever an enemy is inflicted with fear. And in that case, we restore ourselves HP equal to 12% of max HP now. It was 10% before. And we get 25 energy, which was 20 before. And we increase our self-attack by 10%, which was 8% before. 3 rounds are the same as before, they didn't change that. And we gain 7% control immunity instead of 6% control immunity. And at the end of each round, we still reduce the energy by 50, and with 30% chance to reduce extra 50 energy. The last part wasn't changed at all, so this is still the same. And can, of course, still be bypassed in certain situations, like if you have a look at my interdimensional analysis video, you will get to know in which cases, and I explain it quite in detail. We have a lot of small buffs here, actually, like from control immunity from 6 to 7%. A lot of small buffs are still a lot of buffs, so I think this passive skill is now quite good. And can be quite interesting, and we will likely see a lot more actives with this skill, and with all those buffs he's getting from self, he's getting like crit chance, crit damage, attack, control immunity, recovers his HP, energy. Is quite insane actually. He's nearly buffing all his stats just by through his passives. So that will be interesting to see how this actually scales. Probably if you can get like a Giant Killer Aspen, he's already a huge burst machine, and one of the guys I know actually nearly cleared Dominator with an A-tier Aspen. So with this buff, you can probably easily clear Dominator, and it remains to be seen how far you can get in the campaign. So let's look at these small passives. Again, HP attack, nothing too impressive. And this is quite nice. Longer duration again of the attack buff. Only the attack buff, not the control immunity buff. That's weird. But the way this is worded is weird in general, because increases self-attack by 10% for 3 rounds and control immunity by 7%. So is it like control immunity also has a 3-round limit, or is it infinite? We have to test that actually. Not clear how they described it, but getting the attack for 4 rounds is of course nice, will allow us to stack it higher and thereby get bigger bursts, even in the first rounds, or like round 4 will be insane in that case. So quite a good buff. And for the last one, At the end of each round, inflicts energy oscillation for every 1 energy the target has. Deal 3% of attack damage. Again, a very badly worded effect. The question is, of course, who are we inflicting energy oscillation to, which isn't clear. I would imagine it is every hero with fear, but it doesn't say that anywhere here. Might as well be any enemy, might as well be ourselves, who knows. I would think it is every enemy with fear. Energy oscillation, you might know it from carry. It was an effect that was first introduced with carry. It just deals damage, so it's not like it drains the energy. You just take damage if you have energy. I don't think this is quite that impactful though. It's nice to have. It's like passive damage and can also hurt the enemy quite badly if he's on low life or something. You can kill him with that, so getting an extra layer of damage is always good, but I don't think it will have quite the impact, especially not in PvE. So, now we having said all that, we have one last part to look at, and this is of course the core. So the core for Aspen consists of multiple effects. We of course have the base stat buffs of the 12% attack and 18% HP, which I already think are quite insane, considering this has its own slot where it goes in, so you don't even sacrifice your artifact slot, but all the Transcendence heroes get that, of course, so it's not like unfair or something. Oh, closed it. It's quite nice. And then we have the real effect of the core. At the beginning of the battle, it grants all allies 1 layer of devil armor, and if Aspen defeats any enemy, all allies also get 1 layer of devil armor. And of course that means, as it is a layer buff, that you can have multiple layers of it, and what it does is, right at the end, every layer of devil armor increases control immunity by 15% for 3 rounds. This effect decreases by 5% every round. I don't think it's that impressive, to be honest. Maybe if there are some carries in the enemy team, like in Void Vortex or something, you can stack that up quite nicely. Otherwise, of course, when you near the end of a fight and have killed like 5 enemies in 2 rounds or something, you will have 100% control immunity, which is great, don't get me wrong. But if I think of Void Campaign, for example, and you face like the Holmes Young teams that are quite a pain, actually, and you go into turn 2 where they have their active ready, you likely won't even have killed one of them. Neither true or something, so they will just still CC you. But it's nice, you will get 1 layer directly at the start of the battle, so 15% control immunity basically instantly as buff. So I wouldn't say it's bad, just not that impressive in my opinion. Then we have the second part, when an ally raises basic attacks or active skills to horrified enemies. Lord of Fear Aspen additionally launches an attack, dealing 400% attack damage to them. So basically every horrified enemy takes a second hit when he's attacked. That does another 400% of attack damage. I think the 400% of attack isn't even that valuable. The valuable part is really just hitting the enemy a second time. So if you hit in like Unbending Will, every attack to a horrified enemy takes off 2 layers of Unbending Will, even if it would regularly be only 1 hit. So that's quite great. What is even better is the last part, when any enemy is horrified, increases all allies' attack by 4% and damage reduction by 3% for 2 rounds. And when I first read it, I thought like, that's really not a lot. Like 4% attack, 3% damage reduction. But we had a look right now at all these skills, and I think he will hand out the CC like candy. So I would expect him to CC like 4 to 5 heroes every round at least. So getting like 4 to 5 times this buff every round, so like 12 to 15% damage reduction and 16 to 20% attack buffs every round can actually be huge, because you will cap out on damage reduction quite fast, and just will acquire huge attack buffs. They only last for 2 rounds. That's a little bit short, but it will still be great buffs. So that's a very solid core of Origin, in my opinion. Not like the best of all the ones I have seen, but can still be a great core, especially if you run main hero Aspen, LFA, I mean. So all in all, I think this hero upgrade is a little bit less impressive than the one for Starwing Jabba. Still, it might fix some of the issues that LFA has, and will make him more viable as a solo carry hero, like as your main A-tier giant killer hero for Dominator clears and in PvE. And this passive might actually make him interesting for energy feed teams. He wasn't that used that often in energy feed teams, because his active only hits like one enemy and this barely has any impact. But if he can now inflict fear or Abyssal Gaze on all enemies with his active skill, he can be quite interesting for those teams. So that's about it, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments about it, and we will see us in the next video.